from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on AgDay, the president talks trade in Asia plus trade in North America.
I'm Tyne Morgan. Why a no deal on NAFTA would be bad for business. I have that story from Farm Journal's Milk Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada.
In agribusiness, keeping up with cattle demand.
The market's very overbought technically, so I'm a little concerned that this thing's on its last legs.
A pest has Southwest pecan growers worried, and a little viral video fun this harvest season.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The president with a sharp focus on security and trade during his trip to Asia this week as he prepares to head for China. American farmers are getting some good news. China committing to buy more U.S. soybeans ahead of the president's visit to Beijing this week. Reuters reporting Chinese soybean buyers prepping to sign a letter of intent with the U.S. Soybean Export Council. Although we don't know exactly how much, it will be in addition to a July letter pledging to purchase 12.5 million tons of U.S. soybeans. Sources saying volumes will be much less but reflect agricultural ties between the two nations. U.S. beef, barley, and dairy products may also get attention during the visit. China follows the president's time in South Korea, where he leaves a country that has a growing taste for U.S. pork. The U.S. Meat Export Federation just releasing its monthly tally of protein shipments. It shows pork exports to South Korea climbing 33% volume in September. The Export Federation says Korea is on pace to set a new record this year. Now, overall, pork exports remain steady from August and year over year. Meanwhile, beef exports dipped slightly from the previous month. It rose 2% year over year in volume and increased 16% in value. Keeping with trade talk, attendees at Farm Journal's Milk Conference are paying close attention to NAFTA negotiations, especially as it pertains to dairy trade with Canada. Tyne Morgan has details from Las Vegas. Tyne?
Thanks, Clinton. Well, after a short break, the fifth round of NAFTA negotiations are set to kick off November 15th. Now, that's 2 days earlier than originally planned and allows negotiators more time to discuss and work through issues. But it's not just auto and manufacturing that are sticking points in this deal. Tensions also surround dairy. Sean Haney says while Canada's dairy industry is taking a hard stance on its policies, not willing to really budge, it's other groups who want to see major headway made on trade.
We've heard President Trump talk a lot about how, he maybe just wants to withdraw from the agreement. I think there was a time period where people really thought, he's never going to do that. But it seems like that is becoming more and more of a reality all the time.
Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer says here at home, the U.S. dairy industry is a topic that drums up support on both sides of the aisle.
U.S. dairy policy, both trade and farm program, dairy policy, is probably going to be one of the leading topics in both of those enterprises. I say that because from a trade policy perspective, let's just assume they do work an agreement for NAFTA 2.0. You then have to sell it to a Congress. A number of Democrats have focused on dairy, in particular market access into Canada.
But he says as negotiators race to the finish line, if the final outcome is no deal, it will be bad for business.
But if it were to collapse, you would have a really upheaval in the U.S. dairy industry because tariffs go up significantly, not only on dairy, but on hams, et cetera. So that would play into a very negative tone for agriculture and the need for, new markets, which takes time, to develop.
Well, what's the likelihood that this administration will walk away from a deal that some in ag argue creates jobs and has boosted the overall economy? Well, I ask 3 dairy leaders, including former Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack, tomorrow morning on AgDay. Reporting from Farm Journal's Milk Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada, I'm Tyne Morgan.
The latest measure of agricultural producer sentiment shows a majority of farmers surveyed don't expect grain prices to improve in 2018. And because of those still anemic prices, a growing number of farmers plan to adjust their production practices next spring. The Purdue CME Ag Barometer is showing the overall sentiment ticking 3 points higher in October to 135. Now, during the survey, economists asked producers if they plan to make any significant changes in their production practices in the upcoming year in response to tight margins. About 20% expect to reduce their seeding rates, and about a third will adjust their hybrid trait packages Those levels are comparable to responses a year ago. But when it comes to fertilizer, fewer farmers will make changes.
And I think part of that difference is probably attributable to the fact that fertilizer prices have come down in the intervening 12 months. For example, anhydrous ammonia prices, a primary input, especially for corn production here in the Corn Belt, are down about 20 or 25% compared to where they were this time last year.
When it comes to farmland rental rates, the survey shows 80% of the producers do not expect any improvement in 2018. But Mintert says when he asked non-farmers the same question, such as bankers, half of that group suggest cash rents will likely decline in the new year.
The I80 Harvest Tour is brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
As we wrap up the I80 Harvest Tour, finances are proving to be a major hurdle as the 2017 season hits the home stretch. Betsy Gibbon has that story.
Farmers along our I80 Harvest Tour may have different things to say about this season.
The yields were above average. We're the best corn yields we've ever had.
Poor spots. We'll drag it down. We'll still have a good crop, but probably not as good as last year.
But there seems to be one central message among row crop farmers.
The largest challenge I would say would probably be, and I think everybody would agree, would be commodity prices right now. They're pretty much at break-evens right now, if not below cost of production.
Where we can fit as grain farmers, how we can add diversity. I've had some conversations with some neighbors that kind of wish they had hogs again.
We're definitely seeing people that are going through some stress financially, no question. I think one of the things that we're really looking for is the stress in working capital.
A survey from Farmer Mac and the American Bankers Association says 51% of agricultural lenders noted an increase in operating loans, but no notable change in the demand for ag real estate loans.
There are lots of farmers out there that are below break even, and particularly if you're cash renting. Cash rents have not come down nearly as much as farm land prices. So, and we looked at, and we asked bankers about looking ahead, how much do you expect farmland prices to change, and of course over the next year, still a negative 3%.
The Rural Main Street Index from October says prices are below break even for farmers cash renting, although really serious financial trouble is limited for now.
We asked the bankers about what they expect an increase in delinquencies are. We actually asked foreclosures and bankruptcies, and they expect a 5% increase. And so that's surprising to me that you wouldn't have more of that. I don't think the bottom is in terms of, for example, foreclosures and delinquencies and bankruptcies.
Many farmers, while far from foreclosure, are experiencing tight credit, as even excellent managers struggle to get a loan approved.
They know in their mind they're a great operator and they love having them as a customer, but then again, they have to answer to their credit officer. They have someone they have to answer to, and when the numbers aren't there, it makes things tight on people that they actually do want to do loans for sometimes.
The process now taking longer as credit officers want more information. Arrington encourages for producers to get ahead of the crowd this renewal season, suggesting bringing past, present, and even potential future plans to their banker.
Just because it doesn't work on paper the first time does not mean you can't find a way for it to work. I'm not saying force the process and make it work if it's not, but don't be discouraged if your first try you can't do it, because there's other things that you can do with your budget and your debt and other things that you're going to have to lay cash out for that could make it work possibly if you dig deeper into it.
As this season comes to a close, farmers are looking to make their own opportunities.
I do some premium stuff on some identity preserve with non-GMO and things like that, which gives me better opportunities. But it's tough finding those opportunities to lock in a profit.
While they hope for a price boost post-harvest. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Thanks, Betsy. USDA announcing in September it's forecasting positive net farm incomes for the end of this year. However, that's mostly due to higher revenues in the livestock sector. Let's check in on harvest around the country with today's crop comments and our own Mike Huffman. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Thanks to Brian Egoff for sending us this photo of harvest in northeast Indiana. He says he has 100 acres of corn and 400 acres of soybeans left to go. USDA says 70% of corn and 85% of soybeans are harvested in the Hoosier State. And Randy sent this photo through Twitter of harvest in northeastern Nebraska. He says harvest is done. USDA says about 70% of the Nebraska corn crop is now shelled. On the production front, Randy says soybean yields were good. The early harvested corn was great, but there was a lot of wind damage on the late harvested corn. And Matt Carter in Sulphur Rock, Arkansas says fall calving is about done on his operation. He says it's been dry, which makes calving much easier. And taking a look at the root zone moisture, you can see the wet areas in the upper Ohio Valley and parts of the Nebraska area westward. We'll talk more about the root zone moisture coming up. First, here are some hometown temps.
Farm Journal On Air is the go-to app for American agriculture. AgDay, AgriTalk, U.S. Farm Report, and more. 24/7 access to all of your favorite shows, TV and radio. In your hands, on demand. Farm Journal On Air. Download the app today.
When we come back, we'll dig into the recent strength in cattle markets. And later, I think I could join the singing trio. Iowa farmers turned viral video superstars for Harvest 17.
AgDay, brought to you by John Deere. Where can you find the most comprehensive inventory of John Deere certified pre-owned tractors, combines, and sprayers? MachineFinder.com. Sometimes the best new addition to your fleet isn't new.
There may have been some red during the trading day Tuesday, but overall cattle markets have stayed pretty strong lately. Tyne Morgan from the road has more details.
Here now with Alan Brugler. Alan, let's talk about this cattle market. I mean, you look since October 23rd, the impressive climb that cattle prices have been on. Does that worry you at all?
It does. We've had a little bit of a hole in the supply of ready cattle, and we've had a very strong export program. But as we go into mid-November or early December, we're going to see a big increase in the number of market-ready cattle that are going to be available, and the market's very overbought technically. So I'm a little concerned that this thing's on its last legs, and we're due for a little bit of a correction here.
But we are heading into seasonal demand. If we see demand pick up, do you think that balance within this market continues? Do you think supply and demand can kind of mesh and keep prices supported?
Well, I think we're going to build beef stocks a little bit, which means we're not quite keeping up with the consumption and the production. But on the other hand, that's normal this time of the year. So yeah, I think the key is really the export market. Beef exports have been running double-digit percentages ahead of a year ago. That needs to continue because that's absorbing the excess production.
So what could hurt exports? I mean, when we look at the U.S. dollar, we look at some other factors, what could hurt exports that ultimately would drive down beef prices?
Well, the dollar rally is certainly a concern. We've had an upside breakout on the dollar last week. We've kind of consolidated a little bit this week, but that if the dollar continues to strengthen, that hurts our competitive position against Brazil or Argentina or other exporters.
So as we close out 2017 and head into 2018, how much downside risk do you think we have in this cattle market, or do you think maybe it could hold through spring?
Well, I think we can hold most of the gains through spring. Long term, I'm still concerned. I think we go back below $100 at some point because of all the production that we're having on beef, pork, and chicken all at the same time. I've kind of upped my targets from what I was thinking a year ago for the next cycle low, but I think there's still some downside risk here.
Yeah, we definitely have a protein overload. Just keep that demand going, and hopefully that'll save prices.
Eat another steak.
You got it. You don't have to tell me twice. Thanks so much, Alan. We appreciate it. Stay with us. We need to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more Ag Day in just a moment.
To talk to Alan about his ag market professional services, call Brugler Marketing and Management at 402-697-3623 or visit his website, www.bruglermarketing.com.
Receive a free trial of the Daily Grain Plan newsletter from Roach Ag Marketing. Text Roach to 31313. Start your subscription today by texting Roach to 31313.
Ag Day weather, brought to you by Kawasaki and the new Mule Pro FXR side-by-side. Ride like a boss with high-end styling and rugged capability.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Here with meteorologist Mike Hoffman and the Root Zone Moisture Matt. Mike, a couple big changes here over the last week or so.
Yeah, Montana continues to get moisture, obviously. The root zone shows the moisture, but still under a drought there, and it's drier in Arizona and some of the surrounding areas. And you have to remember this root zone moisture is compared to normal. So even though it's always kind of dry in the southwest, this is drier than that. And you can see all the moisture in Indiana and Ohio from those storms this past Sunday. Looking at the weather map today, high pressure dominating most of the Corn Belt, cold front along the Gulf Coast along with an area of low pressure in West Texas. That's going to be a pretty good rainmaker as it moves eastward through Texas. Snowmaker then with the area of low pressure moving along the front along the Canadian border, and a very slow moving system out west is going to dump a lot of rain because it's going to be such a slow mover it will just kind of be sitting over some areas. By tomorrow morning, snow through the upper Great Lakes, rain through the southeast with both of those areas of low pressure. And you can see as we head through the rest of the day tomorrow, both cold fronts continue to come southeastward. This is the shot of the coldest air of the season we've seen so far into the upper Midwest. Precipitation estimates past 24 hours. You can see the mid-Atlantic and parts of the Southwest. Adding in the next 36 hours, we are definitely going to see a fair amount of rain. My computer's not really going through it, unfortunately, but a fair amount of rain through the southern tier of states. Snowfall estimate past 24 hours, a little bit in Colorado there. Adding in the next 36, we'll see a few strips of snow through the upper Midwest into the northern Great Lakes. That'll be the main area that occurs over the next couple of days. There's the afternoon temperatures, much colder air poised to come southward from the Canadian border. It's already highs in the 40s and 50s for most of the Midwest. You can look at lows tonight down to 11 in Bismarck, and you can see temperatures generally lows in the 30s all the way down into the south central plains. And highs tomorrow only in the 50s in the northern portions of the southeast, highs only in the 20s in the far northern states. There's the jet stream, and you can see that trough bringing in that shot of cold air, but then the computer models kind of just show things going back to zonal with ripples coming from west to east. So big changes through the northern tier of states, kind of staying mild farther south. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, El Paso, Texas, partly sunny, a shower in some areas, high temperature around 70. Iron Mountain, Michigan, a mixture of sunshine and clouds on the cold side, high around 38. And finally, Lake City, Florida, times of clouds and sunshine and warm, high 84.
We're talking produce and pecan pests next on the Packer TV, and later, Here We Grow. These Iowa farmers chronicle Harvest 17 in a music video. Social media gold on In the Country. And news from our reporting partners at the Packer. U.S. avocado growers have some added competition. The first shipment of Colombian Hass avocados has arrived in Florida. 2 months ago, USDA gave approval to Colombia to export avocados to this country. The shipments will head to Atlanta, where they'll be distributed. Meanwhile, avocado volume out of Mexico should reach nearly 2 billion pounds during the current season, 15% higher in volume. Fruit size is smaller, but the number of avocados being picked is greater. Prices are 25% higher than a year ago. Meanwhile, one of the biggest cash crops in New Mexico and a popular ingredient around the holidays is at risk from a tiny bug, the pecan weevil, threatening the state's $180 million pecan industry. The bug was first detected in early 2017 in the state, and quarantines were put in place. Now, quarantine impacts producers' ability to ship the tree nut out of the state. New Mexico is second in pecan production, only to Georgia. Up next, you're never too young to try your hand in a viral video. We're off to Harvest in Iowa.
AgDay, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential. In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. See the hardest working tractors in ag at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
You know, harvest can be a really stressful time as money sits in the field while Mother Nature does her best to slow things down. But these days, there's more than one way to pass the time.
Here we grow. Here we go. One more time.
A little Here We Go rework of an NSYNC song by Bain Brothers of Hampton, Iowa. These seasoned ag professionals proving social viral videos aren't just for the young. The team pulling together some pretty impressive video, including night shots in this chronicle of Harvest 17, which they say is wrapping up in their area. They hope to finish up this week themselves. Now, Bruce in the red, he does the farming. His brothers Larry and Kevin come to help each fall. Kevin also sharing some aerial drone footage, saying it's pretty amazing the opportunity that drones provide for a bird's eye view of the operation. Singing, fellas, pretty cool stuff. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.